All right, you should be able to hear me now. I want to thank you all for being here, both online and in person. Tonight's talk is power nutrition. What I'm going to do is a little different. I'm going to actually teach you about all the things that have to work correctly for you to actually digest food. And then I'll give you a simple, if you don't have leaky gut problem, a simple diet that you can actually follow that will help you. This is what a lot of people spend a lot of time on, is diet recommendations and so forth. The key for us to understanding this is there's one very important thing that has to work first. And if this doesn't work, it doesn't matter what you eat. And that is your brain has to be working correctly, because if it's not working correctly, it can't control how you actually digest or absorb the nutrients. So that's why we want to spend a lot of energy and time on, is the brain working correctly, before we jump into all the diet. Now, don't get me wrong, some of the diet stuff can cause inflammation and problems like that, but we want to see what are the steps that need to be working correctly first, and then move forward. For what we're dealing with, we're going to look at the brain. And in the brain stem, there are two nerves that come off it. And they're called the vagus.
I want to see that.
And these nerves are the ones that literally control all of your digestive function. If that nerve is, well, there's two of them. If they're not working correctly, then we're going to have big issues. So what we want to do is we want to make sure, can the brain, and specifically the brain stem, work correctly? If it doesn't, we're going to have problems digesting any food. The number one issue that we actually see in here is faulty or lack of vagus function. And it doesn't matter what you take, if you can't make your bowels work correctly, you can eat the best food curated by the best people, and you're not going to get any nutrition out of it, and you're going to be deficient. So we want to make sure the brain is healthy first. That's why I spend so much time helping you with the brain. So how do we know if the brain is healthy? Cerebellum is healthy. That's the little brain. Top of the brain is healthy. Motor cortex. And front of the brain is healthy. Frontal lobe. I've spent a lot of time on that. Do you have any questions on that? I hope not, because then I would have failed. But that's the key, is this working correctly? The part of the brain that we want to make sure works really well is the frontal lobe. That has the motor cortex involved, because if it isn't working correctly, you can literally put yourself in fight or flight and turn off that vagus nerve from functioning correctly. Because that vagus nerve, the one coming off the brainstem, that goes to the stomach and the small and large intestine and the gallbladder and all the other stuff we're going to talk about tonight, it's what's controlling everything. So if you're stuck in a fight or flight response, you think somebody is going to get you, or you're worried about something, what happens? You turn off digestion. You don't get hungry. You literally turn off the feed or breathe, the relaxation, the parasympathetic, the relaxation state of your body, and you cannot digest your food. So we want to make sure that frontal lobe is in a good state. If we can't, like I talked about the other times, go for a walk. Going for a walk will actually stimulate this nerve. Belly breathing will stimulate the nerve. That's why we talk about belly breathing a lot. And I'll talk about other things that you can do to stimulate it, that are the big kahunas that we use in the office, that are more powerful than the first two that I told you. But walking will also stimulate that frontal lobe. So now, after the brain is stable, we get into what are the systems that need to work correctly for you actually to digest food. And the number one thing that has to work correctly is smell. If you can't smell, you will not actually activate proper digestive enzymes in your mouth. And if you can't smell, that's the primary thing we look for to see if you have early onset dementia or not dementia, Parkinson's and neurodegenerative disease. So what are the smells that we want you to have? And I test this. The number one smell that you will lose if you have early Parkinson's is actually this: you can't smell peppermint. That is the number one thing that you need to be able to smell. The next one is anise, and then the next one after that is coffee. So if we have lost those smells, it tells me olfactory problems, and we're gonna have plaquing in the olfactory, the smell center in your brain, and you won't be able to digest things correctly. What's the next thing that we need to work to digest things correctly? And that's actually saliva. So we need to produce saliva. This is very common for people. Well, not as common, but it is common for people. So if you meet somebody and it takes them forever to eat, they may have a saliva issue. They may not be making the enzymes to actually break down the food and have problems with eating. The other one that we can look at is chewing and the jaw. Does it move correctly, or do you get pain every time you chew? Do you have TMJ issues? If we do, this can lead to some problems with actually digesting the food. If you do not chew and you just swallow whole, we're not like dogs, and we don't have a ton of acid in our stomach. When we do this, it will actually stop the acid from being released in our stomach. The act of chewing your food actually turns on the stomach acid. And you'll see next, that's really, really important, because that's going to actually lead to making the acid to digest the protein and to digest the different amino acids that we're eating. So if you want to make sure your food is being digested correctly, you have to actually chew. A good rule of thumb is if it's meat, you got to chew at least 30 times. If it's vegetables, chew till it's a slurry. So that chewing will actually stimulate the vagus nerve. So, and I'm sure you guys have all experienced this. If we go back to smell, have you ever experienced you smell something and then you start salivating? That's because you're actually turning on the nerve system. You're turning on how the body actually works. I'm going to tell you something interesting, is that we found that there are actually immune cells in the mouth. So you got IgA immune cells. And if you are exposed, if say you're a celiac person and you're exposed to gluten, the exposure to the gluten will literally trigger degeneration in the stomach, or not the stomach, in the small intestine before it actually gets in there. Just putting it in your mouth will cause degeneration of the gut. Isn't that crazy? The immune system will literally start reactivating and driving that. So we have to make sure all these systems are working correctly. The other thing is if the brain is working correctly, and the right side is working correctly, and the left side is working correctly, you won't overreact, and then you won't start getting autoimmune issues, and that comes from gut. So I'll let you in on a secret, is that if you have food insensitivities, if you have allergies to external things in the environment, like soaps and different things like that, that all comes from leaky gut issues. It doesn't mean you have problems in the fact that you get bloating or anything. You just may have an autoimmune or an immune reaction to the foods and the environmental toxins that you're exposed to, or environmental stimuli, and that's causing a reaction, but you have a gut problem. So the really, really sick people we'll see will have neurodegenerative or degenerative problems that are brought on by the leaky gut, but they don't have any gut symptoms. So gut problems don't necessarily mean that you have symptoms when you're eating food. So what we want to get to next is, are we making enough acid? So the acid is really important, because if we don't make enough acid, we cannot digest proteins. So what does that mean? What happens? If you don't digest proteins, then you're going to have that really noxious smelling gas, because the bacteria in your colon will start eating up the protein, and that's where the bad methane and the bad gases come from. So if you know somebody who has really bad gas, it's literally because they don't have enough acidity in their stomach, and they're not breaking down those proteins. That will literally drive a lot of these problems. So we want to make sure you're acidic enough. Well, what are things that can make you not acidic enough? Being stressed out. Because remember, what do we do when we're stressed out? Do we make that vagus nerve work or not work? Not work. So we don't make enough acid. So doc, you're telling me I can literally get indigestion from worrying about something at work? Yeah. We know people who do that all the time. Or Worrying about my child? Yeah. Or being in a car accident? Yeah. Or being exposed to heavy metals? Yes. All of these things, chemical, emotional, and physical, can literally cause digestive issues. Then the next thing that we need to have work correctly is actually your liver and gallbladder. Why is that? The speed at which your gut is going to move can be actually determined or activated or deactivated by the amount of gallbladder function you have. Forgot that I wanted this. I'm going to come right back. There's a little paper I'm going to get that has some interesting information. I'm probably doing the faux pas that you should never do.
He's the best doctor.
There it is. So there's literally a list we have here of drugs that will affect how you digest things and will affect if your gallbladder is working correctly or not. Will affect if you salivate or not. So these are things like any benzos, beta blockers, any opioids, painkillers, a lot of antibiotics, things like L-Dopa, ibuprofen. So there's multiple things that people take that will actually stop you from working correctly. One of the big ones that most people aren't aware of is something that will really affect your gallbladder or make it sludge up is actually statin drugs. So cholesterol meds. It will literally clog up your gallbladder and they will stop the gallbladder from working correctly. Now, why is that important? If your gallbladder doesn't work correctly, you cannot digest fat. And what are all your cells made out of? They have a fat membrane. So if you can't digest fat, you can't heal. What is the number one deficiency that America has? Any ideas? Vitamin deficiency. Go ahead.
D?
It's D, correct. It is vitamin D. So vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. So if you are not absorbing it, you literally are prone to 1/3 of all your genes not functioning correctly. That's how much vitamin D turns on. So we need a lot of vitamin D. To get the amount of vitamin D that you need, a lot of people say, well, it's from the sun. It is, but you have to be in a high sunny area. So what we were taught is you literally have to be like on a sailboat 8 hours a day, and then you're going to get enough vitamin D. If you're not getting enough vitamin D. Do we have a agrarian society anymore? No, we're all inside. So we're not getting enough vitamin D because we're not literally exposed and we're not getting strong enough sun because we're more north. One of the theories I was taught, not sure if it's true or not, is the reason why MS is so prevalent in Canada is because you're so far north and the vitamin D is very, 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 very low. But the interesting thing happens is that the Native Americans don't get it because they eat a lot of blubber, or they did, and so they were getting their fat soluble vitamins that way. So we were seeing correlations. So we need to have the fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, K at right levels. And if we do not have a gallbladder that works correctly, we won't get them. The gallbladder will make us absorb them, but it will also, when you have the gallbladder excrete, it will actually make the bowel move. So guess what stimulates gallbladder excretion? And a lot of people do this as they get older, coffee. Coffee actually causes constriction of the gallbladder. So that's why they drink their coffee and within 30 to 40 minutes later, they got their BMs because it literally makes the gallbladder move, which then makes the bowel move. Because the gall will come out and that will actually stimulate the movement in the gallbladder or in the digestive tract. Do you have any gallbladder stuff questions? No, we're good. Okay. The other thing we need to have work correctly is our pancreas. Our pancreas is going to produce the enzymes that digest carbohydrates. So these are all the systems that we need to work correctly, and then we can actually get into the bowel itself. So we get into the bowel itself, and in the bowel, we need to make sure that we have the right good bacteria. And we need to make sure that we're feeding those good bacteria. Do we have any ideas what the bacteria eat? Any ideas? If you don't, it's okay. I haven't taught you guys this yet. 1, 2, no. No ideas? Okay. So what the bacteria eat is actually fiber. So the bacteria eat fiber. That's fiber from vegetables and fiber from fruit. There's no fiber the bacteria eat in processed foods. So what are the things that will kill the good bacteria? Processed foods, sugars, alcohols, milk, grains, fried foods. What is the American diet full of? Everything I just said. And if we've spent any time looking at the microbiome, we understand it literally drives your immune system. It also drives your metabolism. So how quickly you use proteins and fats and carbs is determined by your microbiome. To the fact that they've done studies in rats where if they take a fat rat and put the fecal matter of a skinny rat into the fat rat loses weight. Now, they didn't tell you that within 3 months, the fat rat got fat again because they didn't actually feed them, but they did lose the weight. And what they've done, and they started doing in Atlanta, I learned about this, I think it was about 10 years ago, is they're doing fecal transplants to try and help the immune system of really sick people. Because your immune system is derived, a lot of it, from your microbiome. So the other thing that blew me away is that your microbiome or your gut bacteria actually removes half of the toxins in your body. So they do phase 1, phase 2. So each bacteria can do a different form of digestion or breaking down toxins so that you can get rid of them. So what is the number one thing that we want to have healthy then? Our gut, our microbiome. But what are we seeing fed to our kids in schools? Or what are we seeing on every corner? We're seeing processed foods, high in sugar, high in fried. We're seeing this. This is what we're seeing. So we're literally seeing people do what will kill the bacteria in their gut and then wondering why they get chronic sinus infections or why they get depression or why they get anxiety. Everything I'm talking about can be related to the gut health, or where they have immune issues or chronic pain issues, or where they have kidney problems or liver problems or heart problems. Because this is something that most people aren't aware of. The bacteria in your gut actually produce things called short-chain fatty acids. And what those are the rocket fuel that feed all the other bacteria in the body. So if you don't have a good gut, you don't have the fuel for all the other bacteria that make sure that you're healthy. You have a good kidney and a liver and a heart and so forth. So what do we need to do to make sure that that gut is staying healthy? What we need to do is feed it the right nutrients. So what are the right nutrients to feed it? That's when we're looking at things that are high in fiber. The higher the fiber, the more the bacteria can grow. Now, if you are somebody who eats fiber and gets bloated, that is a very, 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 very bad thing. If you get really, really bloated, that means the incidence of you having something called SIBO is really, really high. And that's very, very, very bad, because then bad bacteria actually move from your large intestine to your small intestine, and then you can get really bad problems. So we hope you don't have that. If you do, we can help you, but it's a harder case. It's a really hard case. So we want to eat things that are high in fibers. So vegetables that are multicolored. We don't want to eat just green. We want to eat all the colors of the rainbow. feel like I'm like that. One of those sugary cereals.
Magically delicious.
Exactly. Then we want to eat things like seaweed or shiitake mushrooms. We also want to eat things like flax or chia. These are going to be bulking agents and fiber agents. They're going to actually allow the bacteria to grow. They're actually going to feed it. If we want to feed it directly, the stuff that will make it grow, we have a product called Enterovite. If you're taking it, that product actually gives the bacteria the fuel to grow and will make it grow very quickly. We've actually used that product with people who are taking antibiotics and they don't come in with gut issues and they don't want to have to, but they have infections in their teeth or something. We give that to them and it's so powerful that the good bacteria actually stay and they don't get the gut issues to come back. So we can actually help you keep that strong. Then you want to eat fermented foods to get the good bacteria. So you're going to want to eat things like sauerkraut and kimchi, kefir, pickled vegetables. Then after that, we want to take things that can help with antimicrobials. That means helping you. So far we've talked about feeding the bacteria, giving you the good bacteria, but then what are things that we can take that will kill bad things like viruses or parasites or yeast or molds? Well, that's our friend apple cider vinegar. So it's actually antimicrobial, garlic, and onions. So that will actually get rid of the bad stuff from growing or help you protect yourself. So that's why that apple cider vinegar or an apple a day keeps the doctor away type thing is actually true. It's actually giving you the fiber and giving you the antimicrobials so you can actually kill it naturally. Then we want to look at superfoods to make sure we don't have any inflammatory problems. So what are our superfoods? Do we have any ideas? What are our things that are the highest in antioxidants?
Kale.
Kale, I don't know. Kale is a superfood, but we want to look at things like berries, olive oil, and my favorite, avocados. So these are the things really high in antioxidants that stop inflammation. If you follow these basic things, high fiber, fermented foods, some garlic and onions and apple cider vinegar, and some berries and avocado, and cook with some olive oil, you are setting your gut up to heal and stay healthy. Then when you eat the food, the protein, the carbs, you will actually digest it correctly. The supplements, you'll actually digest it correctly. But what are the things that can break down the gut line? We've talked about this, but I'm talking about again, processed foods, fried foods, sugar, alcohol, grains, and milk. So what are the things most people are allergic to? Grains and dairy. Those can cause chronic inflammation. The thing that has happened, and we see it, it's quite interesting, is that the grains that we get here, they're not genetically modified. They're actually bred to have more gluten in them. So if you get the grain from Europe and you're only gluten sensitive, you won't have any reactions because the grain in Europe is from the 1400s, the 1300s. It's not allowed to be modified. Where the grains here have been hybridized or bred to have more gluten in them. So that's why we'll see the reactions. So if we follow this plan, then we're going to have a good gut. If we don't, we're not going to have a good gut, and then we're going to get problems. Yes.
Where do you find grains?
Where are you going to find stuff? So if you need to eat your pastas, you're going to want to find something. Are you talking about like pastas that are from Europe, or are you talking about other things? So it depends on how you react and how reactive you are. If you have leaky gut and you have a gluten problem, gluten will cross-react with corn, soy, as well as dairy. I'll go off on a tangent and come back. The most reactive dairy is actually camel's milk, but who drinks camel's milk all the time? So it's actually, if you have a casein problem where you react to dairy, camel's milk is the most reactive. The least reactive, if I remember correctly, is like goat. But what you want to look at is if you want to help yourself stay healthy, the reactivity for gluten will still react if you're really sensitive to every other grain. So it will still react to millet, it will still react to corn, it will still react to rice, it will still react to all these other things. If you have celiac, you have to actually limit a lot of that stuff. So a lot of people who have celiac are, oh, I'm fine, I'll just, eat corn instead. That will still cause digestive issues. It's just, it won't cause the huge digestive problem. If you're only sensitive and not reactive, then you're going to want to look and find products that are from Italy or Europe, and that's what we do. So my family, my mother-in-law, she makes pasta every single Thursday night, and we make sure our pasta is coming from Italy so we don't react to it. Interestingly enough, you can actually get pasta from Italy from Costco. So they carry the products that are clean and good for you. If you are somebody who does have the reaction, then I recommend bean-based pastas, things that are made from lentils or legumes or different things like that. So you can get like chickpea pasta or different beans that will actually help. That's where I'd recommend you go, because if you have reactivity and you're going in the wrong direction, you don't want to keep flaring it up because it will cause degenerative problems. Make sense?
Thank you.
So to recap, high fiber foods, fermented foods, natural antimicrobials, garlic, onions, apple cider vinegar, and superfoods, berries, avocados, olive oil. If you follow this, this is a basic diet plan. You notice how we didn't say anything about protein? Because most people are not going to react to the proteins. If you are really sick, you will react to it, and that's when really bad things happen. So we don't want that to happen. If you can make sure the gut stays healthy, you will heal. If you don't, it will literally fall apart. And that will destroy your health. So if you follow those simple diet recommendations for nutrition of the things to eat and the things to stay away from, you're going to do okay. If you don't have an autoimmune, yes, you can cheat. So don't think that I'm telling you can never eat fried stuff again. Just don't make it every day. Make it one day a week. So you can still eat the things that when you were a kid that you loved, your French fries and different things like that. But if you have an autoimmune or you have a sensitivity, you can't. The one thing I did leave out here that will destroy your gut is industrial seed oils. So these are things like vegetable oils. Any vegetable oil is literally toxic. So that's like canola oil, rapeseed oil. I'll just tell you the good ones, and any other one besides those are bad. So the ones that you can eat are avocado, olive, and dairy or butter if you can handle it. All the other stuff is toxic. It will literally destroy the membranes in your body. And it's since they introduced these industrial seed oils, the incidence of autoimmunes, the incidence of cancers has gone through the roof because they're literally toxins. Before they were introduced as a cheap substitute like canola oil for people to cook with and stuff, they were used as lubricants on machinery. So that tells you how good it is for you. It's not good for you at all. So stay away from them if possible. If you're really sick, those are things that you need to stay away from. If you're not really sick, you may be able to deal with it, but the products that you need to take to make sure that you're not going to fall apart are omega-3s. Omega-3s will literally heal the brain and can heal the gut. For the brain, you need DHEA, and for the gut, you need EPA. But you need a lot, not a little. You need like 3,000 milligrams per day or milliliters per day is the base minimum. If you're really sick, like I've seen studies where they give kids who have ADD, ADHD, like 10,000 to 20,000 IUs or milligrams per day of DHEA or DHA. So you have to understand, this is the number one thing that will actually help with the inflammation and help with the inflammatory process that those oils, the canola and the different things that we get fried foods in are made from. We also, if we have a really bad gut, need to repopulate it. We have a temperature non-sensitive product here called Stringtia, which means that it won't break down if it's kept in hot temperatures. So that's what you want for a bacteria, because if it's temperature sensitive, it means it's going to die. So if you have to get it out of the cooler, it's going to die when it goes to your stomach. The product that will help you immensely is those short chain fatty acids it's called Enterovite that we have. So that will regrow the gut microbiome, and it also helps with any inflammation in the brain. It will stop neurodegeneration if you've had head injuries. So if you've had a stroke, that's one of the things that we highly recommend is Enterovite, and then another one called Nitric Balance to increase blood flow. And then the last ones to make sure your gut heals correctly is vitamin A, vitamin D, Enterovite like we talked about, and then glutathione. These are all products that will actually help the gut heal. So as you can see, I didn't talk a lot about the vitamins or not vitamins, but the food to eat. I'm talking more about the systems that need to work so that when you eat the food, you'll actually digest it. Do you guys have any questions, guys or gals? No?
What are some of the foods?
Some of the foods that you can eat. So the things that you want to eat are non-processed. So you make your own. You have your own. Side note, anybody who has an autoimmune, specifically Hashimoto's, do not eat corn. No, corn is a reactive, that's true. It's a fish, it is tuna. So there's a cross reactivity with thyroid issues in tuna. So just FYI, stay away from tuna. It will literally flare up if you have a thyroid problem. And most females are thyroid dominant because of their body type, so tuna will actually be degenerative. So you're gonna eat your lean meats, you're gonna eat your veggies, you're gonna eat your legumes and your fermented foods and your fibers and your things like apple cider vinegar and so forth, and your superfoods, and you're gonna stay okay. The more processed stuff you eat, the more digestive problems you're gonna have. So with that being said, if you have a friend or family member who has any digestive problem, we can definitely help them. We just have to figure out which one of the processes is actually causing the issue. And as we showed, it starts at the brain and works all the way down. The majority of digestive issues are not going to be fixed by giving you a probiotic, by just removing certain things and trying to treat the bacterial fungal infection, because the reason it's there 9 times out of 10 is your stomach isn't acidic enough. So the worst thing that you can actually do to set yourself up for stomach issues is drink carbonated water a lot, take antacids, Tums, Pepto-Bismol, or have a PPI, proton pump inhibitor, the ones for people who have heartburn. That will literally set you up for digestive health problems. So the first thing I usually have to treat for people is make you acidic enough, and then everything will work correctly. So if you have a friend or family member who has any of these issues, let them know next week is our patient appreciation day or week that we do. That's when we do the full assessment for 20. And the money that we raise during this week, we're actually going to be donating to Hope Homes and the English Advantage, which is a group of children that are being exploited down in Mexico. So we'll be donating whoever comes in the money for that to that fund to help those children. So please think of any friends or family members. We'd love to help them, love to give them a way to get help. If they've had problems chronically, we'll find out, is it a simple thing or a hard thing? And we can actually give them a realistic viewpoint of what's going on. So I want to thank you guys for all being here, and have a blessed day.